What's up, everyone? Welcome to the second episode of the Myles podcast. I'm glad you guys chose to join me today. Coming in with a little bang. I know you heard that. Hear that. Hope everyone's doing good out there, though. Hope you had a good start to your year and a good few weeks or month into 2021. Once again, welcome to the second episode of the Myles podcast. My name is Myles Munroe. I'm your host. And, every episode I hope to come and just bring you a new part of me, something new that you haven't heard or learned before. I'm here to entertain you. I'm here to educate you. I'm here to elevate you. Those are the three things that I hope to do with this podcast. So for this episode, I wanted to do something a bit special for everyone. Well, maybe not special, but something that I feel is important to talk about. That it has grown to be pretty rampant over the past few years, especially in 2020, and that deals with depression and mental health. As I described to you guys in my first episode of the podcast, I dealt with the loss of my parents, and I remember, going through that loss. Man, that was the lowest I've ever been in my life. Like I remember it was a crazy experience for me because it was something that I've never personally experienced. I've never had to deal with a loss that was so close to me, and it was weird because there were days where I felt fine, and then there were days where it was just like, man, what the hell is going on? What am I supposed to do? Why can't I think straight? And man, it was a tough time for me. And I want to start off just by giving you some statistics, right? So a person commits suicide every 20 seconds around the world. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among 15 to 29-year-olds. 15% of the world's population have mental health issues. That's about 1.1 billion people. It's a lot of folks. And 4% of the world's population deal with depression. And that's about 300 million people that deal with depression on a daily basis. And I'm sure that number should be much higher, but I think, a lot of us, there's this stigma that comes with, I guess, accepting or admitting that you have mental health issues, or you dealing with some type of depression, or speaking to a psychiatrist or someone to tell your problems to, or to try and work through your problems. Some of us see that as problematic, right? We see it as a stigma that's placed on us that we're crazy, or like we can't figure it out for ourselves. We don't have control over our lives, and I think that's quite unfair, And I told the story to a few of my friends and stuff before, when I was dealing with the loss of my parents, and I was going through all of that depression that I was experiencing, and I remember during the time of the loss, there was a friend of the family that was really just wanted to help, right? And they wanted to do their best to help us to cope with everything that we were dealing with. And they had us speak to this grief counselor. And mind you, this was the day after my parents died. So my parents died Sunday, November 9th, 2014. On Monday, November 10th, this grief counselor came into where we were staying at the time, and she kind of wanted to talk us through dealing with something that happened less than 24 hours ago. And she was telling us to, hold our hands up and turn our hands over so that we can release whatever goes on. Let me tell you something about dealing with grief and like dealing with a traumatic experience. Ain't nobody trying to let nothing go at that point, man. Like all you people who are there who are trying to help, like there are friends or family members or loved ones that may have experienced something traumatic and you want to help the best way that you can. Sometimes the best thing that you can absolutely do is nothing, because you make matters worse. Like I remember I was so mad and upset in that session because I'm like, I just lost both of my parents, my uncle, great friends, some great friends of the family, and you're sitting here telling me that I need to let it go. Like how crazy is that, right? And I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who feel the same way, and you may not know how to articulate that, because at the time I didn't know how to articulate that. I wasn't sure if I should just be honest and be like, I'm not into this, and just walk out, or be respectful and just kind of go through the process. But for me, I didn't walk out or anything. I was kind of held my composure and just kind of went through the motions. But at the end of it, man, I told my family I'm never doing that again. So I don't care who comes to me and says I need to deal with like grief and go talk to someone or whatever. My response is I'll do it on my time. Okay, I don't need any assistance in that arena. And going through the 5 stages of grief, right? There's denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. And I remember there was a point dealing with the loss, dealing with the entire situation, where like I can vividly remember telling myself like, man, I get it now, because prior to that, like I never could understand like how people could commit suicide. Like how do you bring yourself to kill yourself? Like there can't be anything that drastic or that out of control or out of your control where you feel like it's better off if you're not here. And I recall that there was a gentleman, there were 2 gentlemen actually, that was members of our church, and they ultimately killed themselves. They committed suicide. And I just remember how tough that was on my dad as lead pastor, senior pastor of the church. And yeah, I knew one of them very well, and I knew the other gentleman. I knew we were acquaintances, but both really affected myself, my dad, the rest of the church, because it was so traumatic, And I thought about the guy that I knew. I thought about his kids and the rest of his family, and how, I guess it's selfish for me to say it's selfish. But in dealing with the situation, like I totally understood how people can get to that point, because I remember like just feeling like, man, I can't do this. Like I can't wake up every day feeling like this, like feeling this emptiness, this loss that I'm dealing with. Like this doesn't make sense to me, and I don't know how to process this. And for me, I understood it. I never had suicidal thoughts, but I was able to better empathize with those people that do deal with those type of thoughts, those type of things when they're going through their depression, when they're going through hard times. And I was really able to understand the mindset that comes on when you're dealing with grief and you're dealing with depression, and you just feel like, man, this is going to be, I'll be better off not being here, not being on this earth, right? Just taking my life away. And honestly, my faith kept me, and my faith is something that I was able to build when my parents were here. It was something that I really appreciated my dad for at that point, because I was able to observe him and I was able to learn from him, to be quite frank, on how to deal with loss, because he lost his mother, he lost his brother, and then there were some things that happened, some deaths and some other things that happened to members of our church at the time. And I just watched how he processed all of those things and how he was able to deal with those type of things. And ultimately he wrote a book, right? He has this book called Rediscovering Faith. And man, when I tell you, I've read that book 3 times already in the past 4 years. And that book has helped me deal with and process through this entire period of my life. Anyone that's dealing with depression, you're questioning your faith, you're questioning God, and you're questioning things that are happening in your life, I would recommend my dad's book, Rediscovering Faith. My dad, Dr. Myles Munroe, his book is called Rediscovering Faith. If you have an opportunity, if you haven't read it as yet, get yourself a copy, because those times are coming, right? There are things that we can control on this earth and a lot of things that we can't. And for those things that we can't control, it's best to be prepared for them. So, I would recommend this book because this book helps you to prepare for those times. And, I just remember the mentoring that I received from my dad and the lessons that I learned and just being able to deal with loss, right? We don't have any control over who lives, who dies, who gets sick, who doesn't get sick. And it's just something that we have to accept. We can't control natural disasters. We can't control, pretty much we can't control the economy, right? So anything, there's like in 2020, this pandemic happened and the world shut down. That was out of a lot of people's control. Like no one had control over that. So a lot of businesses, went belly up. A lot of persons lost their jobs. A lot of persons lost their homes, are even now in the process of losing their homes. So all of these things that happen in our lives, it creates these scenarios where we have a choice to make. We have a choice whether we, want to fight it and fight through it and manage ourselves through the situations that we're going through and really deal with everything that, we're able to deal with, because it gets tough. It really gets tough. And, there are some just recommendations that I have, some things that I dealt with when dealing with, my grief and my depression. And, the first thing I would recommend is to seek help. And, the help doesn't have to be professional help. Help could be, a friend. Just keep yourself, motivated and around good energy and good people. If you need to seek professional help, I recommend that as well. But there's a lot that, people try to force on individuals going through grief or going through depression because it's what society says needs to happen. But all of us deal with loss, deal with grief, deal with depression differently. So, the cure or the coping mechanisms can't be the same for everyone. So, just do what you know is best for you and what you think is best for you. And if you can't figure that out, find a mentor, find a family member, find a friend, because all of these, you can't do it by yourself. We can't do it by ourselves. I have a great family, a great group of friends that really was with me, that entire time. And I still, go through moments where the depression sets back in, and I allow it to, right? I don't fight it. I try not to be superhero or play a superhero in those moments. I think it's good that we naturally go through all of these emotions and we allow ourselves to experience those different emotions, because it's how we know how to deal with it, right? And I think the more we allow ourselves to not fight it, but let it take its course, right? Just understand that we shouldn't settle into it or allow it to take over us. I think that's where we get into trouble. But really building a network of helpers, right? Whether that's mentors, family members, friends, whoever it is that you surround yourself with during hard times. I think it's great for you to identify those individuals and just keep them close, especially during those hard times. Another thing that you need to do is understand that things change over time, right? Nothing lasts forever. Life is cyclical. Life is seasonal, right? There's a time where we're going to laugh. There's a time we're going to cry. There's a time we're going to succeed in life. There's a time we're going to fail. All of these things happen in our lives through seasons, right? Through cycles. So just know if you're in a successful time, an upswing, a downturn is coming. Know if you're experiencing some level of success, some level of failure is coming, right? You're going to fail at something. Failure is inevitable. So, just understand that even though you're in a period in your life, you're going through something right now that you may be in a good space or you may be in a bad space, but just know that emotion, that time period isn't going to last forever. You're going to get through it. It's eventually going to end, right? It's going to come to an end, and a new season is going to it's going to manifest itself in your life. So just know that things change over time. The third point is there are always other options, always. And I'm speaking specifically here with, dealing with suicidal thoughts and the temptation to maybe harm ourselves in certain situations, right? There's always other options, and again, I think it goes back to the first point where you seek help, right? You just try to find some good energy, man. If you need to take time off, take time off. Do whatever it is that you need to do to really focus on your mental health, because that's the most important. Another point, and the fourth point is just to know that you can't predict the future. You don't have control over a lot of things that happen in life, right? There are things that we just cannot control. And I think the more or the quicker we can grasp that principle and understand that and accept that, the better we will be when things happen. Because we know, I'm not going to dwell on this. I'm going to try not to dwell on this because it's something that I couldn't control or I can't control. And then lastly, focus on the facts of your situation and not your thoughts. And again, I remember going through my grief, my stages of grief and my depression, and just being so upset and angry and just the natural emotions when you're dealing with grief, right? And I would find myself drifting, my thoughts drifting. And, they would get, like I say, get to the point where I was like, man, I can relate to someone that feels like just finishing themselves, right? Just kind of checking out of this life, because it gets tough, man, just dealing with the thought even of, I remember I used to think about, man, I wonder how it feels to go through a plane crash, right? And what's that experience? And I would try to allow myself to live through what my parents may have lived through, and that's not healthy, right? And I'm able to talk about it now because, like I said, the folks that I had around me, even the books that I was reading, that book I recommended from my dad, Rediscovering Faith, that book helped me a lot as well. So, even though I would, go through those thoughts, and I may have at the time known that it wasn't maybe a good thing to do, I didn't allow myself to dwell in those moments, right? And I just kind of focused on the fact that, okay, they aren't here. This is how things happened. This is where we are now. This is what we have. This is what's left, and we got to figure it out from here. And it really helped me as an individual. And I just wanted to use this particular episode to just really talk to individuals out there that are going through difficult times. I know we're just coming off of 2020, and that was a different year for a lot of individuals. I wouldn't say it was the worst year of my life. I think I've experienced that, 4 or 5 years in the past. So 2020 was, to be quite honest, sort of a breeze for me. There was nothing that surprised me, nothing that happened that I, wasn't expecting. I'll be quite honest. And that's because I understand the fact that, there are just things that are out of our control and things that we can't help whether they happen or not, right? We just manage ourselves through those situations. We manage ourselves through the ups and downs. But man, seeking help and having a good communication with your friends, your family, you should always have individuals that you can be honest with, right? Be vulnerable with. And I think a lot of us try to deal with our grief and our depressions by ourselves. And, it's just that it's I know it's hard sometimes, because I know it's easy sometimes to seclude yourself and kind of shut yourself off from the world. But it's not healthy to do. And I really want to encourage everyone or those of you who are dealing with these situations, and also, those of you who are going to deal with situations like depression and grief at some point in your life, because it's going to happen. Trust me. So the better you can prepare yourself for it, I think the easier it'll hopefully be for you. But, anyone that deals with those types of situations, just understand that, we don't have any control. And the best thing that we can do as individuals on this earth is kind of live our lives knowing that, there's a greater power at work. Like, God has control over everything. I truly believe that everything that we go through in life is for a reason. There's a purpose in it. And I think instead of focusing on the negative and being upset about why it happened, being upset at what happened, I think we need to focus on being upset about or finding out why it happened, finding the purpose of what happened, right? And really understanding how to apply the lesson that I'm supposed to learn in this situation. Because there's a lesson in everything that we go through in life, good and bad. Even if it's achieving some level of success or accomplishing a goal or something, there's a lesson through that process. And even in that excitement or in that celebration that you do when you're successful or when you're in good times, knowing that, man, this could flip just like that, right? There are things that are going to come at me that I'm not going to expect. I won't be able to anticipate, but I have to be prepared, and I have to be able to manage myself through those situations. I think it's of utmost importance for us to do as individuals. I applaud individuals like myself who's gone through, certain traumas and certain situations that, you're able to speak about it. I think we should talk about it because I think us talking about it helps the person after us who's going to experience the same thing or something similar, or may be able to relate to, the emotions and the thoughts that we had to deal with during our situation. Because when you go through it makes you stronger, right? It builds you to where you're able to now be better when those situations or similar situations come again. So I'm just encouraging everyone. I really wanted to use this podcast just to kind of say that I understand how difficult it could get sometimes, especially when dealing with loss, right? And I'm talking about loss of a loved one, right? But the loss can be anything, right? Loss of a job, loss of a business, loss of a home, loss of a career, any type of loss that you're dealing with. Just understand that it's not the end of the world, right? That there's another side to that loss. There's another season that's coming. The cycle is going to continue, and even though you're down or maybe down at this moment, it's going to turn around for you. So just try to stay as positive as you can. Surround yourself with good people, good energy. That's the most important thing. I think the more we can not seclude ourselves and really put good people and good energy around us, I think the easier and the easier it'll be for us and the better it is for us. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't days where you shouldn't seclude yourself. Man, there were days, maybe 2 or 3 days in a row where I didn't see anyone, I didn't talk to anyone. And I think that's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And if someone tells you that there is, you don't have to listen, right? Like I say, man, all of us deal with, depression and grief differently, right? There isn't just one way to skin a cat. You have to find what's effective for you. You have to find where your line is. I can't allow myself to cross this line, so I need to bring friends or family or professionals around me when I feel like I'm getting close to that. But if I'm not there and I just need, I just want to be by myself, today or be by myself or this weekend, feel free. Don't allow anyone to tell you what you can and can't do when dealing with a situation that they've never dealt with before. And it's unique to you, and you know how it's affecting you. I think you are able to hopefully manage your way through. And, let me just give this disclaimer. By no means am I a professional in this space. I'm just giving you my experience, right? I'm a man that lost both of my parents in a aircraft accident, something that just we weren't expecting. And for the past, 6 years, I've been dealing with this reality, living this reality. And, I every year, I'm able to get a little stronger, get a little better. And, if I'm able to encourage and help anyone out there, anyone that's listening to me, anyone that's watching me, if I'm able to help you and encourage you in a depressive or grief-filled time, then that makes me happy. That lets me know that what happened to me wasn't in vain. I would love to think that my experience could be someone else's success or someone else's achievement. My negative experience could be someone else's success or someone else's achievement. And in any way that I'm able to help or just give some sound advice, I'm open to that, and I appreciate those of you who are listening. And if you haven't experienced anything like this before, don't think that you never will, right? Because for a part of my life, I never thought that I would lose my parents, especially the way that I lost them. But thankfully, I was able to start thinking that, okay, man, this may be a possibility. There's a possibility that this may happen. And, I started to visualize it, to be honest. I never visualized a plane crash specifically, but, I started to think about, all right, what would I do if they weren't there? And, just started to lean on my faith, started to read a little bit more, pay more attention to, my dad when he would speak about loss and control and crisis and managing our way through those events. And honestly, those are the things that helped me. So I just want to give some encouragement to you guys. We're in a new year, fairly new year, and we went through a really rough 2020. Some of us may go through the same type of roller coaster ride in 2021. Maybe the roller coaster ride may be a little worse. For some of us, it's gonna get a whole lot better. Wherever you are in that spectrum, just know that it's not gonna last, right? That season is here, or that season you're going through it, and a new season is coming. So I just want to give some encouragement. Continue to push forward. Continue to stay positive. Speak life to your situation. Speak life to yourself. Continue to hold on to your faith. And, hopefully these situations causes you to go in search of faith, right? Get closer to God, spiritually. Because the answers that we don't have for ourselves here on earth, God will show and reveal those answers to us.